The text came at 11:45 p.m. A single vibration on Ethan Moore's phone, a phone that rarely lit up unless it was work spam, emergency alerts, or the ghosts of a past he tried to forget. But this message was different. It was from an unknown number, a child's number. "He hurt my mom. Please help us." Ethan froze, staring at the screen. At first, he thought it had to be a mistake, a wrong number sent to the wrong man. Then another message appeared, shorter, broken, trembling. "I'm hiding. He said he'll kill her." Ethan's breath stopped. He had seen fear in war. He had lived through the worst men could do, but he had never seen this. A child begging a stranger because she had no one else left in the world. He typed only 3 words. "I'm coming now." No hesitation, no doubts. But when Ethan stepped into the night with Ranger at his side, he didn't know one truth yet, that a wrong number was about to save 2 lives and change his own forever. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. Enjoy the story. Sex 0.3. A cold midnight rain pressed against the quiet American suburb like a restless hand. Ethan Moore sat alone at his kitchen table, the dim overhead bulb casting a tired halo around him. At 45, he carried the rugged durability of a man shaped by 14 years in the U.S. Army. Square jaw, slightly shadowed with coarse stubble, sun-toughened skin that still held the memory of desert winds, and dark, steady eyes that seemed always half lost in a distant battlefield. His shoulders were broad but slumped slightly, the posture of someone who had learned to live with invisible weight. Beside him lay Ranger, his 7-year-old German Shepherd, a powerful sable-colored dog with sharp amber eyes and scars beneath the fur, scars earned during search and rescue deployments overseas. Ranger was loyal in the way only a dog who has seen his owner bleed could be. Tonight, the house was silent except for the ticking wall clock and the occasional groan of old floorboards expanding in the storm. Ethan wasn't sleeping again. Nights were the hardest. His mind liked to replay things he wished he could forget, faces of soldiers he couldn't bring home, the sound of radio static right before an explosion, the emptiness of returning to a country that didn't feel like home anymore. He rubbed the heel of his hand against his brow, trying to quiet the noise in his head. Then his phone buzzed. Once. Then again. A text message lit up the cracked screen. "Please help us. He made my mom's head bleed. She won't wake up." Ethan blinked, straightened, and read it twice. The words struck him with the cold precision of a sniper shot. He didn't know the number. For a moment he sat absolutely still, trying to decide if this was a prank, a wrong number, or something far worse. Ranger lifted his head, ears pricked, sensing the shift in Ethan's breathing. Ethan exhaled slowly. His instincts, those drilled into him in war and sharpened by years of regret, told him one thing. A child wrote this, and she is terrified. He dialed the number immediately. The ringtone only lasted a second before someone answered, not with words, but with a shaky, watery breath. A little girl's breath. "Hello?" Ethan said, voice low and steady, the way he used to talk to frightened civilians overseas. "Sweetheart, can you hear me?" A tiny sniffle came through, followed by a whisper that cracked like thin ice. I pressed the wrong number. I thought this was my uncle." Her voice trembled so violently, Ethan felt his own heart tighten. "What's your name?" he asked, gentler now. "Lily," she managed. "How old are you, Lily?" 9. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. A 9-year-old, alone with an unconscious mother. He forced his voice to stay calm, anchored. "Is your mom breathing?" A pause, then a frightened, "Yes, but her head, there's blood. He pushed her. She hit the counter. He took her phone and smashed it, but I found it. And I tried. More tiny sobs. Ethan's jaw tightened. He had heard that tone before, in frightened refugees, in wounded soldiers, in people on the edge of losing everything. "You did the right thing, Lily. You did everything right," he said. "I'm going to help you, but I need to know where you are." I don't know the address," she whispered. "Mom always tells me not to open the door for strangers." The irony cut deep. Ethan kept his breathing steady. "Look around. Do you see any numbers? Maybe something outside, a mailbox." "I'm scared to leave her," Lily said, voice breaking. Ethan swallowed the ache rising in his throat. "Okay, tell me anything you can see." There was rustling, little hurried footsteps, and then she whispered, "There's a window. I see a street light, a stop sign, and a red mailbox." Ethan froze. He knew this neighborhood. It was barely 5 blocks away. His heart thudded. He stood so quickly his chair scraped against the floor. Ranger rose with him, tense and alert. "Lily," Ethan said, already pulling on his jacket, "listen to me carefully. I'm very close. I'm coming to help you and your mom. Stay where you are. Don't open the door for anyone but me." A soft, terrified breath came through the phone. "Okay." Ethan grabbed Ranger's leash, then hesitated. Ranger didn't need a leash, not tonight. "I'll be there soon," Ethan said, gripping the phone. "You're not alone anymore." And just before he ended the call, Lily whispered the words that hollowed out Ethan's chest. "Please hurry." Ethan stepped into the rain with Ranger, heart pounding, not with fear, but with purpose he hadn't felt in years. He didn't know who Lily was or what horror she was living through, but he knew one thing with absolute clarity. He was not going to let a child wait in the dark for help that might never come. As he reached his truck, his phone buzzed again, a location ping from Lily's damaged phone. The address confirmed his suspicion. The girl was only 5 blocks away. The night held its breath as snow whispered against the small suburban homes lining Maple Street, a fragile quiet broken only by Ethan's boots crunching over frost. He moved with the rigid focus of someone who had spent too many nights answering the wrong kind of calls. Ranger pacing beside him, the German shepherd's sable coat bristling with alertness. The house was dim, a narrow 2-story place with peeling white paint and a porch light flickering weakly. Ethan felt the wrongness before he even touched the doorknob. The door wasn't splintered, not forced open. Instead, it hung slightly ajar, shifting in the wind like a held breath about to break. That matched the child's frantic message. Someone in a hurry, someone who didn't care if the door closed behind him. He pushed it open quietly. Ranger slipped inside first, nose low, tail stiff. The faint smell of copper drifted from the kitchen, carrying memories Ethan wished he didn't recognize. Memories of battlefield aid stations, dim tents, and the heavy stillness that settled over the wounded. He steadied himself before following the dog. The kitchen lights were off, but the glow from a street lamp outside traced the outline of a woman's body on the cold tile. Sarah. She lay crumpled near the table, one arm bent beneath her, her long, dark brown hair spilled across the floor like ink. She was maybe mid-30s, slender frame, pale skin, a tired beauty that spoke of sleepless nights and soft resilience. Her sweater was torn at the shoulder, and a thin line of dried blood curved down from her temple to her cheek. The wound matched exactly what Lily had whispered through tears. Ethan crouched beside her, skimming 2 fingers gently along her neck. A pulse, weak but steady. He let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Ranger stayed close, whining low, nudging Sarah's arm as though urging her to wake. "Sarah? Can you hear me?" he murmured. She didn't stir. He scanned the room. A shattered phone lay near the fridge, its screen spider-webbed with cracks. Beside it were fresh scuff marks where someone had kicked it, or thrown it with force. That explained why Lily couldn't call 911, a detail that knitted seamlessly into the frightened story she managed to spill. Across the kitchen counter, something else caught his eye. 2 mugs, one knocked over, cold tea pooling onto the surface. A third, smaller mug with cartoon bears painted around the rim. Lily's. He stood and motioned Ranger forward. The dog trotted to the living room, nose working, then barked softly, one sharp alert that said someone had been here recently. Ethan followed, eyes narrowing as he swept the space. Nothing seemed stolen, nothing overturned in rage, but the silence was heavy, unnatural. He returned to the front door, studying the frame. The lock mechanism had thin, fresh scratches, tiny grooves carved by a narrow metal tool. Not violent enough to break in, just enough to test the slate lock. Enough to show someone had tried to force it before giving up and entering when Sarah opened the door for him. The pattern was clear. The man, Sarah's boyfriend, had come uninvited, argued, grabbed her phone, thrown it, pushed her hard enough that her head struck the counter. Not an accident, not an uncontrolled stumble. The angle and placement of the blood suggested she fell sideways, caught off guard. Ethan's jaw tensed. Ranger sensed it and leaned against his leg. "Where's Lily?" Ethan whispered. The house was too quiet, too still. He checked the hallway, stepping past framed photos. Sarah smiling on a beach years younger. Lily with missing front teeth clutching a school project, both wearing the kind of joy that seemed too fragile now. A soft creak from upstairs made him freeze. Ranger lifted his head, ears pricked. "Upstairs," Ethan breathed. He moved toward the staircase, each step deliberate. The house felt like it was holding its breath along with him, waiting for something, someone, to break the silence. A faint shuffle echoed from the second floor, followed by the softest click, like a door closing or a foot slipping. Ethan gestured Ranger ahead. But before they reached the top step, cold air drifted through the hall from the back of the house. He turned sharply. A window near the laundry room was open by just an inch, too high for a child to reach easily, too deliberate to be accidental. Fresh shoe prints led away from it into the snow outside. Not Lily's. Too large, too spaced apart. A grown man leaving quickly, but not running. And then Ethan noticed it, faint but undeniable. Headlights flickering distantly from a car parked down the alley, facing the house as if someone were watching. The man hadn't left the neighborhood. He was waiting, watching, maybe for Lily, maybe for Sarah to wake, maybe for something Ethan hadn't yet realized. But he was still here. Snow tapped softly against the windows as Ethan guided Lily up the narrow stairs, the old wooden steps creaking under their weight. Her small hand clung to his sleeve, trembling. She couldn't have been more than 8, thin, pale from fear, with tangled light brown hair and wide hazel eyes that kept darting toward the darkened hallway. The girl moved like someone afraid her footsteps might wake a monster. Ethan opened the door to her bedroom, a small space filled with scattered toys and a nightlight shaped like a moon. "You're safe for now," he whispered. He pulled a chair from the corner, wedged it under the doorknob, then knelt in front of her. "Stay here. Don't open this door unless I say your name. Understand?" Lily nodded, though her breath shook. Ranger nudged her with his nose, the German shepherd lowering himself enough for her to place a trembling hand on his fur. The dog's calm presence softened the panic in her eyes. "Good boy," she whispered. Ethan closed the door quietly, heart pounding as he stepped back into the hallway. The house felt colder now, as if someone had opened a window to let the night seep inside. He moved toward the stairway, but before he reached it, a roar shattered the stillness, a hoarse, furious scream coming from outside. "You think you can hide her from me?" The voice slurred at the edges, thick with alcohol and rage. Ethan's instincts snapped into place, the same instincts that had saved his life more times than he cared to count. He ducked toward the window overlooking the street. The man stood by the fence, late 30s, thick build, short-cropped hair, wearing a faded denim jacket over a sweat-soaked t-shirt. His face was harsh, square-jawed, with stubble that looked like he hadn't shaved in days. Even from here, Ethan could see the wildness in his bloodshot eyes. This was Eric Dalton, Sarah's boyfriend. A man whose life had been shaped by bar fights, job losses, and an unchecked streak of violence. His anger wasn't explosive. It simmered and brewed until it became something unpredictable. Right now, he looked unpredictable. Dalton staggered forward, still shouting, veins bulging along his neck. "Sarah, you open this door!" His fists slammed into a trash bin, sending it rolling across the driveway. Ethan's jaw tightened. The man was too volatile to confront without a plan. Just then, Ranger, still upstairs, let out a sharp bark, urgent, warning. Ethan turned toward the back of the house. Ranger wasn't responding to Dalton in the front yard. His barking was angled toward the backyard, deeper, sharper, like he sensed someone moving behind the house. Ethan stepped into the kitchen. The back door's frosted window glowed faintly from a street lamp outside. Ranger's growls vibrated through the wood floor. Ethan unlatched the deadbolt, but didn't open the door yet. He crouched to look through the narrow gap between the blinds. Fresh footprints in the job. Snow. New ones. Leading from the fence toward the house. He pushed the door open slowly, scanning the yard. Snowflakes drifted in the air, faintly illuminated. The footprints stopped near the back porch. And there, half buried in fresh snow, glinted something metallic. A folding knife. Ethan picked it up carefully. The handle was worn black aluminum, and the blade bore a small nick, likely from prying something it shouldn't have. He noticed residue of chipped paint along the edge. It matched the chipped paint on the back door's frame. So Dalton had tried breaking in through the back earlier. Sarah must have confronted him at the front door instead, not realizing he'd already been prowling around the house. Ethan's breath fogged the air as he scanned the fence. The footprints continued, looping from the back door, curving around the yard, and connecting seamlessly to the path leading toward the alley. He followed the line of steps with his eyes. The shoe treads were distinctive, deep grooves and a triangular heel mark. He remembered noticing that pattern earlier outside the broken window. It matched Dalton's boots exactly. Ranger barked again from upstairs, sharper this time. Ethan stepped back inside quickly, locking the door. His mind raced. Dalton wasn't just angry. He was circling the house, unstable, unpredictable, and now fully aware someone was inside interfering. Ethan returned to the living room window. Dalton was no longer by the fence. The front yard was empty. He scanned the shadows. And then he saw it, a silhouette slipping behind Sarah's car, crouched low, feet angling toward the back door. Dalton wasn't pacing anymore. He was hunting. Ethan swallowed hard, muscles coiling. Lily upstairs. Sarah unconscious. Ranger ready, but only one dog. And the man outside wasn't acting in blind rage. There was intent now, something colder. The footprints confirmed what Ethan already feared. Dalton had been circling the house long before he started shouting at the front. He wasn't just drunk. He was calculating. And now he knew exactly where Ethan was. Wind scraped against the siding, as if the whole neighborhood were warning Ethan of what was coming. The house felt smaller now, the air tight with tension. He moved quickly through the dim rooms, checking each lock again. Ranger shadowed him, the German shepherd's fur raised in a ridge along his spine. A sudden crash hammered against the front door. "Open the damn door, Ethan!" Dalton's voice slurred, but heavy with fury. Fists slammed repeatedly, shaking the frame. The man sounded less like he was shouting words, and more like he was spitting venom. Ethan positioned himself between the kitchen and living room, keeping an eye on the staircase where Lily waited behind the barricaded bedroom door. Sarah still lay unconscious in the kitchen, breathing faintly. He couldn't move her, not without exposing them all. Dalton pounded harder. The doorknob rattled violently. "I know you're in there. You think you can steal my family from me?" Ethan ignored the taunts, but his pulse tightened. Dalton wasn't just drunk. His anger was feeding on itself. And men like that, men who felt ownership over their victims, were the most dangerous. Ranger growled deep in his chest. Then everything went quiet. Too quiet. Ethan took one slow, controlled breath. "He's not done," he whispered to Ranger. Moments later, glass fractured in the living room. A sharp crack, then a cascade of shards hitting the floor. Ranger spun, barking sharply. Ethan lunged into the hallway just in time to see a boot push through the broken window, scattering glass across the carpet. Dalton hauled himself inside. The dim streetlight outside cast jagged shadows across his face, highlighting the rage etched into his heavy features. His denim jacket was torn at the sleeve, and beneath it, the man's forearms were thick with veins and tattoos. Faded barbed wire, cheap ink, a wolf head poorly drawn. His eyes were red, but his movements were deliberate. "Get away from them," Ethan warned. Dalton grinned, the kind of grin that carried no humor, only mania. "You don't tell me what to do in my house." "This isn't your house." Dalton lunged. Ethan met him halfway, grabbing Dalton's arm and twisting it down, pivoting with the practiced efficiency of someone trained not just to survive, but to neutralize threats. Dalton roared, swinging wildly with his free arm. The blow grazed Ethan's jaw, hard but not solid enough to stagger him fully. Ranger charged in, teeth bared, snapping at Dalton's leg. The man kicked wildly, cursing, stumbling backward. Ethan used the moment to shove him into the wall. But Dalton fought like a cornered animal, unpredictable and vicious. He grabbed a shard of glass from the floor and slashed at Ethan. The blade missed, clattering off a cabinet. "You're dead," Dalton spit, voice cracking. Ethan blocked another swing, forced Dalton's wrist back, and slammed him to the ground with the full weight of his body. Ranger pinned Dalton's legs, snarling inches from his boots. Dalton writhed beneath them, spitting and shouting until his voice broke into a hoarse rasp. "Get off me! You don't know anything!" Lights flicked on outside. A neighbor's voice shouted, panicked, "Somebody call the police! I heard glass breaking!" Dalton froze, not from fear, but from realization. The fight was no longer silent. The world was closing in. Ethan kept his knee against Dalton's shoulder blade. "It's over," he said. Dalton snarled a breath. "You don't get it. I didn't even do anything yet tonight." Ethan frowned. "You did plenty." But then he noticed something he hadn't seen before. Streaks of dried mud smeared across Dalton's jacket, and darker stains on the chest, crusted into the fabric. Blood. But not Sarah's. The pattern was wrong, too dark, too old, and too smeared to have come from her head wound. Dalton laughed, low and unsteady. "You want to know where I've been? You really think this is about her?" Before Ethan could respond, distant sirens began to wail, approaching fast. Dalton kept smiling, a smile that carried something far more dangerous than drunken rage. Something else had happened tonight, something outside this house. And Dalton knew exactly what it was. Dawn crept over the city in a pale wash of gray as Ethan sat in the hospital corridor, elbows on his knees, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles whitened. Ranger lay curled at his feet, head resting on his paws, but eyes alert. The sterile air smelled of antiseptic and old coffee, the kind of place where nights stretched long and truths finally surfaced whether people wanted them to or not. A door swung open softly. Dr. Hannah Clark stepped out, a woman in her early 40s with auburn hair tied in a low braid, fair skin, and the composed expression of someone accustomed to delivering difficult news. Her eyes were intelligent but warm, the kind that revealed a doctor who took her work personally. "Mr. Moore?" she asked gently. Ethan stood. "How is she?" Dr. Clark crossed her arms thoughtfully. "Sarah has a concussion and significant bruising along the right side of her head and shoulder. This wasn't a fall." Her voice didn't waver. She was shoved with considerable force. Ethan's jaw clenched. Ranger rose, sensing the shift in tension. "She's stable," the doctor continued, "but she'll need monitoring. The impact suggests she hit a counter or a corner." She paused, watching him. "The police already asked, but I'll repeat it for clarity. This was deliberate." It was confirmation, but not surprising. Ethan had already known. Still, hearing it spoken aloud set something cold into place inside him. Before he could respond, two uniformed officers walked down the hall toward him. One of them, Officer Brandon Reeves, was a tall man in his 30s with sandy hair, sharp cheekbones, and a neatly trimmed beard. His uniform was crisp and his posture straight, a man who lived by procedure and carried quiet authority. His partner, Officer Diana Lopez, was shorter, mid-20s, with curly black hair pulled into a tight bun. Her expression was alert and firm, the kind of focus earned from handling more domestic disputes than she ever wanted. "Mr. Moore," Reeves said, flipping open his notebook. "We need a word." Ethan nodded. Ranger sat beside him, attentive. "We've run preliminary checks on Dalton," Reeves began. "There was a residential burglary a few blocks from Sarah's house tonight. The timeline matches the window when Dalton disappeared before returning." Lopez added, "The homeowner reported missing electronics, a laptop, jewelry, and some personal items. Backyard garden was trampled, mud everywhere." Ethan's thoughts snapped to the dried stains on Dalton's jacket. He had mud on him, and blood. Reeves exchanged a look with Lopez. "We found a key in his pocket during booking. Doesn't match Sarah's house. Looks older, brass, worn down on one edge like it's been used on an exterior lock." Lopez held up a photo on her tablet, an evidence shot of the item. "Any idea what he'd be doing with this?" Before Ethan could answer, small footsteps pattered down the hallway. Lily approached slowly, escorted by a nurse. Her hair was brushed now, though still messy, and her eyes carried exhaustion beyond her age. She clutched a paper cup of water with both hands. Ethan knelt. "Hey, kiddo. You doing okay?" She nodded, but didn't speak. Instead, she looked up at Reeves and Lopez, then back at Ethan. I remember something." Reeves crouched to her level. "It's okay. Take your time." Lily swallowed hard. "He came home earlier today with a bag I never saw before. It was heavy, and he kept holding it close. Mommy asked what was inside, and he got angry. He told her to stop being nosy." Her voice cracked. "He never let go of it, not even when he went outside again." Lopez asked gently, "Did you see what was in the bag?" "No, but when he walked past me, something metal clicked inside." "A laptop? Tools? Stolen items?" Ethan exchanged a look with the officers. Things were aligning too neatly. Reeves pulled up another image on the tablet, a photo taken at the burglary scene. Mud streaks beneath a window ledge, a garden churned by footprints. And under the porch light, the mud looked familiar. "We compared the soil sample from Dalton's jacket with the garden from the burglary," Reeves said. "It's nearly identical. Composition, moisture, even the color." Lopez finished. "We'll know for sure after lab results, but it's already a strong match." Lily pressed closer to Ethan's leg. "Was he stealing? Did he hurt someone else?" Ethan rested a steady hand on her shoulder. "We're going to find out." But inside, the truth was already becoming clear. Dalton hadn't just come back to the house drunk and angry. He had come back desperate, hiding something, running from something he had done only hours before. And the blood on his jacket, the blood that didn't belong to Sarah, might belong to someone whose night had gone far worse. The afternoon sun hung low behind drifting winter clouds as Ethan stepped out of his truck and onto the quiet pavement in front of Sarah's house. The neighborhood looked unchanged from the night before, but the air felt heavier now, filled with the weight of truths slowly surfacing. Ranger hopped down beside him, ears perked, nose testing the air as if retracing every echo left behind. 2 police cruisers were already parked along the curb. Officer Reeves stood near the backyard gate, talking with a third officer Ethan hadn't met yet, a broad-shouldered man in his 40s with dark skin, a shaved head, and a neatly trimmed goatee. His Navy uniform was perfectly pressed, and the way he surveyed the yard showed the cautious thoroughness of someone who had spent years studying crime scenes. Reeves introduced him as Detective Carl Whitaker, a seasoned investigator known for his meticulous approach and steady temperament. Whitaker's deep-set eyes carried a quiet intensity, as though he always saw more than he admitted aloud. "More?" Reeves called out. "We're widening the search. Dalton didn't have time to hide much before you confronted him. Something is still here." Ethan nodded. "Ranger can help." Whitaker studied the dog with interest. "German Shepherd? Good build. How old?" 7, Ethan replied. "Smart, steady. He won't disturb evidence." Whitaker gave a single approving nod. "Let's see what he finds." They stepped into the backyard. Snow had melted in uneven swirls, leaving patches of exposed earth and patches of hardened ice. Ranger moved with purpose, sniffing the base of the trees, the garden bed, the fence line. His tail began to stiffen, tracking something. Reeves and Whitaker waited, watching carefully. Near the back corner of the yard, Ranger stopped. His ears pushed forward, nose glued to the ground. Then he began pawing, slow at first, then faster, scraping away frost and loose dirt. Ethan crouched. "He's got something." Whitaker approached, gloves already on. "Let him work. Don't interfere." A few inches beneath the soil, a scrap of dark fabric peeked through. Ranger barked once, sharp, conclusive. Whitaker knelt and brushed away the remaining dirt until a small canvas bag revealed itself. The fabric was damp, smeared with dark soil, and tied hurriedly with an old leather cord. The detective lifted it carefully, weighing it in his hands before opening the flap. Inside lay a stack of electronics, a cracked laptop, 2 phones, a silver watch, tangled jewelry, and a wallet with someone else's ID. Reeves exhaled. "These match the burglary report," Whitaker added. "He barely buried it. That means he planned to retrieve these later. Sarah's yard was his storage." Ethan's jaw tightened. The realization cut deeper than fury. Dalton hadn't only endangered Sarah and Lily, he had turned their home into a hiding place for his crimes. But then Whitaker withdrew something else from the bottom of the bag. A small plastic package wrapped in patterned gift paper, creased and damp, but still intact. A child's sticker decorated the corner, a smiling bear holding balloons. Reeves frowned. "What's that?" Whitaker unfolded the paper. Inside was a tiny keychain shaped like a red fire truck, bright, clean despite the dirt. He held it up. This item was listed in the burglary report of the house with the garden. Belonged to a kid turning 6. Reeves checked his notes. "That house has a camera by the porch." Whitaker nodded. "And the footage shows a man in a denim jacket and dark boots moving through the yard." He paused, looking at Ethan. The same type Dalton was wearing last night. But something else caught Ethan's attention. The underside of the wrapping paper bore faint smears of mud, the same distinct color as the garden soil, and a blurred palm print, small but adult-sized. Whoever handled this item had been rough, hurried, desperate. Lily's voice from the night before echoed in his head. "He came home with a bag today. Mommy asked what was inside. He got angry." Whitaker slipped the gift into an evidence bag. "This is the final link. He didn't just pass through the property he stole from. He kept something sentimental. That tells us he panicked, grabbed whatever he could, and ran." Reeves sighed. He used Sarah's backyard as a drop point to avoid being tracked after the burglary. But Ethan's gaze remained fixed on the keychain, its bright color stark against the sterile plastic evidence pouch. Something about it felt wrong, out of place among the electronics and jewelry. Not stolen for value, just caught in his path. As if Dalton didn't care what belonged to who. As if chaos itself was part of his instinct. Ranger nudged Ethan's hand, sensing the tension. Whitaker closed the evidence kit. "We'll run fingerprints, saliva traces, fabric fibers, everything. But from what we found here, he's tied to the burglary, no question." Ethan nodded, though unease simmered beneath his calm. "This was too close," he said quietly. "Sarah and Lily could have walked back here. They could have found this before we did." Reeves added, "They're safe now. Dalton's locked up." But Whitaker's expression didn't relax. "Safe for the moment," he said. "Men who escalate this fast rarely stop at burglary or assault." He paused, eyes narrowing slightly. "There's something else going on with him, something we haven't uncovered yet." Ethan didn't answer. The winter air felt colder. It wasn't just the breeze. Today they had found the bag. But the truth behind Dalton's actions? That was still buried deeper than the dirt Ranger had uncovered. Morning light filtered gently through the blinds of the small hospital room where Sarah rested. The world outside was waking slowly, as though offering a soft reset after the chaos of the night before. Ethan stood near the window, arms crossed lightly, Ranger lying at his feet with his head resting on his paws. The dog's ears flicked every time a nurse passed by, but otherwise he remained calm, sensing the danger had finally receded. Sarah stirred, blinking as she woke. Her dark brown hair fell over her shoulders in soft waves, still slightly tangled from the ordeal. She looked fragile but less pale, her features delicate and worn by exhaustion but no longer shadowed by pain. Her slender frame shifted against the pillows as she turned her head toward Ethan. "You stayed," she whispered, her voice hoarse. Ethan gave a small nod. Of course. There was something new in her eyes, relief mixed with disbelief, as if she hadn't expected anyone to stand beside her after so long living in tension. Her life with Dalton had carved fear into her movements. Now, for the first time, her shoulders relaxed slightly. A soft knock came at the door before Lily slipped inside, escorted by a nurse. Lily's light brown hair was brushed neatly today, though a few strands still curled around her round cheeks. She looked brighter than before, still cautious but no longer trembling. When she saw Ranger, she ran to him, wrapping her arms around the dog's neck. Ranger leaned into her gently, tail thumping once against the floor. Ethan smiled. "Looks like someone missed you." Lily looked up at him with earnest eyes. "Thank you for saving us." She spoke quietly, but the sincerity in her voice filled the entire room. Then she added, "Ranger, too." Sarah reached for her daughter's hand, squeezing it. "We're safe now, sweetheart." Her voice wavered, but it carried newfound strength. A few hours later, Detective Whitaker arrived, his broad frame filling the doorway. His posture was as steady as ever, his dark eyes calm but firm. He carried papers in one hand and offered Sarah a reassuring nod. "We've concluded our preliminary investigation," he said. "Dalton has been officially charged with aggravated assault and intentional theft. With the evidence found on your property and the burglary footage, the case against him is solid." Sarah exhaled shakily. Relief washed through her expression, softening the tension in her jawline. "So, he won't be coming back?" Whitaker shook his head. "Not for a long time, and even after that, you'll have a protective order in place. You and Lily will be safe." Lily pressed closer to Sarah, her small hand entwined with her mother's. Ethan watched them, a quiet ache swelling in his chest. Not pain, but the recognition of something fragile rebuilding itself. As Whitaker left, Sarah looked at Ethan again. "How can I ever repay you?" "You don't owe me anything," Ethan said gently. His voice carried the calm certainty of someone who had once lost his way and knew how much a single moment of help could mean. "You called. I answered. Anyone would have done the same." But Sarah shook her head softly. "No, not anyone." Over the next week, Ethan became a familiar presence at their house. He checked the locks, helped repair the broken window, reinforced the back door, and cleared the yard where Dalton had buried stolen items. Ranger played in the snow with Lily, the dog always keeping a protective perimeter, glancing back at her every few minutes. Their bond grew quickly, Lily's giggles drifting through the air, Ranger's tail wagging in loyal rhythm. Sarah watched from the porch, wrapped in a soft sweater, her eyes warm. She seemed stronger now, standing straighter, her movements no longer shaped by fear. The bruising around her temple faded, leaving only a faint line, a reminder of survival rather than suffering. One late afternoon, as golden winter sunlight stretched across the street, Lily ran toward Ethan, who had just finished fixing the loose gate hinge. She threw her arms around Ranger again before turning to Ethan with a bright smile. "Ethan?" she asked. He knelt to her height. "Yeah, kiddo?" She fiddled with the zipper of her jacket. "That night, when I sent the message, I thought I was texting my uncle." Her voice softened, trembling slightly. "But my fingers slipped, and I pressed a wrong number." Ethan felt something shift in his chest. Lily continued, her hazel eyes brimming with sincerity. "But Mommy says sometimes mistakes happen on purpose." She said, "Maybe this was a good mistake." She looked up at him, voice barely above a whisper. "It was the mistake that saved us." Ranger nudged her hand gently, as if agreeing. Sarah stood in the doorway, her expression filled with gratitude she didn't yet know how to put into words. Ethan rose slowly, looking from mother to daughter. There was something profoundly grounding about the sight, warmth returning to a place that had nearly been broken. He stepped back toward the street, Ranger settling at his feet, watching Sarah's porch as though guarding something precious. Ethan exhaled, a slow breath that felt like letting go of years of solitude. He wasn't just a former soldier living alone anymore, not just a man haunted by nights of silence. Tonight, as he stood before Sarah's house while the last light of day brushed across the snow, he understood something. He had been called here by chance, but he stayed by choice. And destiny had stitched their lives together in a single accidental text. Ranger leaned against his leg, and Ethan rested a hand on the dog's head. A new day had begun for all three of them. Sometimes, the smallest moment becomes the miracle God prepares for us. A wrong number. A frightened child. A man who answered the call he didn't expect. Maybe it wasn't an accident at all. Maybe God's hand was guiding every step, protecting, healing, and bringing the right people together at the right time. If this story touched your heart today, I invite you to share it. You never know who might need this reminder of hope. Leave a comment about what moved you most. Like the video if you believe God still works in quiet, beautiful ways. Subscribe to the channel for more stories of faith, compassion, and everyday miracles. May God bless you and your loved ones with peace, protection, and grace. Thank you for watching, and may His light follow you wherever you go.